It was great. I really was so proud of you. Like reading through it, I was just like, she got there. She got it. Like really well done. Hello. My name is Tony Chin-Quee.
And I'm Frances Mei Hardin.
And welcome to Social Rounds, the podcast in which two of the happiest surgeon dropouts you'll ever meet give our unsolicited opinions on the state's of medicine, the world at large, pop culture, and whatever else we happen to find interesting. And this is, of course, the beginning of February, and of course, our long-awaited Groundhog Day episode. The people need it. It's all they can talk about. And of course, the big news this week is Punxsutawney Phil, the groundhog, has seen his shadow. So, Frances May, keeper of
Six
lore,
more.
do you know what that means?
I think it's 6 more weeks of winter.
Yeah, you would be correct. The groundhog has once again said that we are in the doldrums of winter for 6 more weeks. I always forget like which one is which. I don't know what but I'm pretty sure over the last anytime I check this, all I can ever remember is that there's gonna be more winter. Is it just like what it is every year now?
I gotta say, this might be your Roman Empire. Or we're on different corners of the internet. I'm on the cozy gaming subreddit. I do follow national and world news.
Sure.
Somehow, Phil, the Groundhog Day lore. I feel like that somehow missed me, but I love it.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, of course, big fan of the movie. Are you familiar with Groundhog Day, the movie? Or were you too young when this came out? Oh, I
I'm
hear
too
the typing
young.
go. Oh,
I'm
gee.
too
Oh,
young. I'm
no. No, I heard the keyboard going. This is a classic Bill Murray comedy, which is it's mostly most people know about Groundhog Day because of this movie called Groundhog Day. Like most
There,
people ain't checking for Groundhog Day all that much. But then you got like Punxsutawney Phil getting a prominent role in the preeminent time loop romance comedy of the is and beyond. It's fantastic.
a 1993 movie.
There you
Damn.
go.
Yeah, I was but
Where were you?
a babe.
You were
Yeah.
a twinkle in your parents' eye at that point. That's your homework. Pop it on. It's so good. And you'll learn a little bit about the groundhog, but you'll learn a lot of bit about life and what's precious.
And
So
love.
I highly recommend that for you. You're welcome. We're gonna get into the episode right now because it's not gonna be Tony the teacher. Today I'm taking on a new persona that I have never done before, but I'm very excited. But just to give you guys a little context. So as we're never too shy to say, you've heard us say it before, Social Rounds is hosted by not one, but two published mass market authors, myself and Frances May. We are doctors who get fancy with the words in hopes that we can leave the world a better place than we found it. And the big news of February is that our own Frances May Hardin is preparing for the release of her debut memoir. Frances May, tell the people when and where they can find your work.
Thank you, Tony. I really appreciate it. I don't know
Mhm.
why. You know that I am such a yapper and I almost never get shy, but I'm shy. Now I feel coy.
That's weird. We can't have
It
that.
is weird. I'm not usually the book Surgeon on the Edge is out Tuesday, February 24th. So
Yeah.
mere weeks and days from now.
Mhm.
You can get it. It's available for pre-order on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and then
Mhm.
it'll be available, on launch day. We're going to have a 6-week book tour kick off at that point, and certainly very excited to bring it to many great local community bookstores along the way.
Hell yeah. Guys, this is a momentous occasion because books are hard, okay? They take a long time to write, especially when you're writing about yourself. I'm like, getting that right is so hard and takes so long. And when you complete something and you can just share it with the world, like, it feels incredible. That's how I felt when mine came out, like, back in 23. How are you feeling right now on the precipice?
I feel I can see in our future a social rounds world tour, and we do the double. We get all the books out together. They are
Mhm.
almost probably companion texts to one another. in a
Yeah,
sense.
that's absolutely true. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're exactly what you would expect of us having been avid social rounds listeners, I think, which is really cool. But yeah, have you done any
Yes.
press or interviews yet?
So I have a bunch of interviews coming up really like in these next few weeks.
Well, that's actually what I was hoping that you were gonna say, that you had not started interviews yet, because that's gonna lead us to what we're doing today. So, as someone who has braved the interview circuit before with my memoir, I know that in addition to it predominantly being super fun, it can be grueling, it can get uncomfortable, and it can get a little inappropriate. And you got to stay on your toes and be charismatic and be ready to like navigate whatever. So I thought today we could do your very first interview for Surgeon on the Edge. How do you feel about
I cannot possibly be more uncomfortable than that
that?
Christmas episode that you put together with all the orifice talk. That's not a
Okay.
challenge. It's not a challenge, just an observation.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, you know me. I take it as a challenge, and we're gonna see. I wanna see how sweaty you get during this. Just knowing that I do this out of love, because I just want you to be sharp when the brighter lights are on you. But right now, we're gonna put you through the ringer. So we're gonna switch gears. I'm gonna be your host. Um, I'm gonna be I'm gonna be as awful as I can possibly be as an interviewer, okay? And we're gonna see just how well you can keep your composure, and also whatever comes out of my mouth, promote your book in a warm light. So that's the trick. This is PR training 101. How do you feel?
Such flashbacks to residency. That's what the head neck attendings say, Tony. I'm hard on you because when
Hmm.
you leave here and you're alone in the OR and the lights are
Hmm.
on, like who's gonna care for you then?
Oh
And then
yeah.
they just like beat the shit out of you.
Hey man, don't think the irony is lost on me here. It was part of the process. So we're doing a little meta textual stuff going on here.
That sounds good, man. I will say I have to plug one of my favorite quotes, favorite
Plug 'em.
franchises. You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
And will I lose some fans after this? Maybe. But guys, we just role playing here, okay? And you guys may learn something in the process. So I'm gonna switch gears, and we're gonna start here, guys. And I want to welcome all of our listeners to the Social Rounds Book Club. This is the place where books come to be diagnosed and dissected, and sometimes revived, but mostly put on palliative care and left to die. And our guest today really is Dr. Frances May Hardin, here to talk about her memoir, Surgeon on the Edge. Dr. Hardin, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I feel like I'm transported to NPR suddenly.
Well, you are. This is where we broadcast from. I'm so glad to have you here, and I just have some questions for you. I read your book, and I had lots of thoughts. I thought it was wonderful, and I want us to share it with a bunch of listeners. So, if you're okay, let's just hop into some questions.
Yep, grateful to be here. Thank you.
Excellent. So, just to start, in a world that's increasingly full of memoirs by doctors that put the shamefully brutal realities of medical training on display for the world to see, you've added yours to the pile. So, my first question for you is, who cares?
Thank you so much for such a thoughtful, insightful, incisive question.
Hmm.
Happy to be kicking off the book tour, here with y'all today. What I would say about my physician memoir in a sea of physician memoirs is that unlike almost every other doctor, I think that I have really been willing to go there in terms of owning my own shit and really like laying it all on the court. I certainly think that what a lot of memoirs can be reduced to, especially when they're from high achievers, is that they are written from the standpoint of the ivory tower and like kind of patting themselves on the back, right? Was it hard? Sure, it was hard, but was I amazing and gracious the whole time? Most of the time, yeah. Whereas I really do believe I took an antithetical approach because, in part, in leaving clinical medicine, I don't have to worry about retaliation the same way that the in group has to.
It's interesting that you you took that approach, because you're right, there aren't a lot of books that do that. It actually reminds me of a memoir that came out a couple of years ago, uh, called "I Can't Save You" by Anthony Chin-Quee. I feel like he really, may have served as an inspiration. Do you look up to him in any sort of, fundamental and creative ways?
I do view Anthony Chin-Quee as inspiration and a mentor.
I
I
mean, who
will
doesn't
share,
really? Mm,
and I'm not saying that under duress. I'm definitely not blinking a different Morse code response. Don't worry
mhm.
about it, you guys. Even when I first, because I purchased your book before we even met, before I reached out. And I read a little bit at that time and loved it so much, but did think that we had some similarities to the point that when I was in my early manuscript drafting and things like that, I put it away. Because I had like a lot of early writers, novice writers, I think that fear of like, it'll incept me. Then like my story will, somehow look like Tony's story. So but that is how resonant and similar it was, which I didn't feel that. There was no other book that I picked up. Every other physician publication, I was like, yeah, no, like this is not going to incept me. We're not the same, essentially. I think that the other shout out I want to give to him, the author, the legend, the man himself, I remember many years ago when I shared a very early concept from kind of like Act One, just shared some early chapters, and some feedback that you gave was really transformative, which was that you're like, this is interesting. Like it has maybe the bones or the hint of something interesting within it. What I find is that the character, the main character, the girl, she is very angry. She's very angry, but she could be angrier. Like we could lean into this is kind of an interesting image, right? Like a incredibly angry and aggressive Chinese woman. You were like, I actually think that we need more stories like that in the landscape and maybe explore that. And it was very, very helpful direction. And certainly I think that people see that written into the final draft of the book.
I'd agree, and I will pass your praise on to the author in question. I'm sure he will receive it very warmly, but I'm glad that, your relationship has been transformative to this point. Let's go to the title here, "Surgeon on the Edge." It's a wonderful title. I think our readers would like to know, on the edge of what? You know, after reading it, I felt confident the answer could be likability.
That was humorous.
You gotta keep going, dude.
I'm going. I'm just breathing.
You
It,
got
it
you
was
gotta
humor.
handle that. You gotta pop right back on.
That's hilarious. Am I allowed to laugh or is it like in
You
media
could
training?
this is
They're
try
like,
we try you trying to keep it if you wanna laugh to, like, keep the conversation going, gather your thought. That's what this is practice. That's why we
yeah,
practice it. Yes.
I was laughing out of horror and then also to buy time. But
There you
no,
go. Pro move.
so the edge, yeah, I mean, I do think that, of course, there are like some overt themes of suicidality. So I think that in a literal sense, there's an edge. What I will say is actually, this is a deeper cut. The title is an homage to the book by Gerald Imber called Genius on the Edge: The
Mm.
Bizarre Double Life of Dr. William Stewart Halstead.
Oh, the Halstead.
It really is. It's like the biography on Halstead. I first read this, yeah, in medical school. It is an interesting, it's okay. The book itself
Yes.
is okay, but of course, like my book does have some of these callbacks to like residency and the world that Halstead built. Like I do feel like some of the blame can squarely be placed on that guy. And so his biography, Genius on the Edge, was part of the inspo for this.
I love that. That's actually that's a great callback. Hopefully, will inspire folks to look a little bit deeper into the history of where medical training really comes from. I did note that you quoted or gave a shout out to Halstead in the very beginning of your book, which I thought was just wonderful. That's great. Thanks for answering that. Now, next question. So there's a lot of crying in this book. You cry in the operating room, you cry in the locker rooms, bathrooms, you cry while you're standing up, while you're lying on the ground. Why do you feel it's important to perpetuate these stereotypes of pathetic female weakness in the workplace? Especially at this moment in history.
I think that being authentic and honest is important. I think that having community with other female professionals, high achieving professionals, is important because I think that at the end of the day, every resident that I know has cried at the hospital. And if we act like that isn't true, okay, it's just further alienating and I think a disservice to like the next generation of physicians.
I think that I think that's very brave of you to go after relatability in that way. Next question, and this is a really pressing one. So you're half Chinese, half white. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah. Has that been weird or what?
it is
Just
weird.
generally. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Tell
is
us about
weird.
that.
It's very man without a country vibes. I always felt that. I actually can remember being like 7 years old, and I remember saying, this feels like man without a country. And I think I was very off putting and alarming to adults who were around me, who I was saying this type of rhetoric to. I think that it just always makes you feel a little bit like you're the outsider no matter where you are. But that being said, as much as I grew up in a white town and community and certainly like college setting, I feel like at the time I always wanted to kind of deny. I was like, maybe there isn't that much Chinese or immigrant influence on my story. Oh, but I think that the older that I get and the more honest I am about where I came from and my story, like I think that those influences are very real and so hopefully again relatable. That's fine. We can make the tagline for the tour relatable, comma, not likable.
We'll see. We'll see what sells. I don't know if that works on a poster, but we'll workshop. I think it's reasonable. Thanks for diving in to that. Now, there's a story in your book about a co-resident of yours who was unable to save a patient's life in an airway emergency. And then after that, other residents went on to joke about how he killed this woman, like sometimes directly to this resident's face. And you did nothing about that at the time, and when you did speak up, it was only in private to him, and it was to say, "Sorry that everyone's being a dick, that's not cool." Now, do you think that what you did at that time was enough? Or do you remain engulfed in shame at your emotional inadequacy?
I will catch you outside after this interview as a side note. But of course, again, a really interesting question from the mind of an interesting cat. I think that there's a lot of things, I mean, so many. I almost would do the opposite of everything that I did in residency if I could go
Mm,
back. I mean, this is
mhm.
something where, I was at the Mayo Clinic 2 days ago giving a talk. Just truly, I think it would be really interesting to go back and just say, what would the old Frances May have done? And then just do the opposite. And I think that I would have had great success that way because it's like, yeah, you can be dealt a shitty hand and you can always choose violence. You can choose to make it worse. And I think I was hitting that button repeatedly. In terms of the bystander effect, that's something that has always really broken my heart to see in the hospital. I've been on both sides of
Mhm.
that, where
Yeah.
I am a terrified team member witnessing it happening, or also when people were berating me or trying to publicly humiliate me, just absolutely bearing down on you, and there's other people in the room. No one speaks up for you, no one says anything. I think that so I can relate. I know it's scary. Like, I didn't speak up because I did not want to get pounced on, right? That's just a scary situation. But that being said, I think that what's better than nothing, if perfect is the enemy of the good with some of this interpersonal stuff, one of the things that I would do is try to go and check in with that person after the fact. And I will say that that almost never happened to me. Maybe the 1 or 2 times in 5 years that that happened to me, it did mean a lot because even just that acknowledgement of like, I saw that, that was messed up. I'm sorry it happened to you meant a lot more than people like kind of, pretending it didn't happen, distancing themselves, being like, well, I don't want to catch whatever you have. I'm not going to acknowledge that messed up thing that just happened.
I think that's really well said. I think the bystander effect is something that anybody in medicine remembers and understands. And I think you demonstrated it in that story perfectly. I was always like kind of waiting for a postscript on what happened to that guy because I was just like, you know, I thought he was a very good example of how, you could choose any one of these residents and they could all tell a story about their lives and like, what's going like I was just like, wow, was this a moment that was this his villain origin story, this moment, even though he smiled through it to everybody. And or did what you said to him at some point like really pull him back from the edge? We'll never know. But all we can control is what we control. And if you can find the strength, even though you're getting beat down, uh, to have those quiet moments, that can be enough if that's what you have to give. So thank you for that. That was one of my favorite parts of the book. Um, Speaking of book structure, many of your chapters are quite short. Was this a conscious choice to write down to the attention span of the TikTok generation?
Uh, it was it was deliberate because it accommodated my own laziness and some lack of decorum and respect for the craft.
So you were trying to get in and get out with these stories. That was your mode.
Yeah. Okay. Here's a famous quote that I loved that I first heard in a writing
Give us a quote.
instruction
Yeah.
setting, which is, when the scene is over, get off the stage.
I
So
think
I feel that I did it.
I think that it helped. The book just flies by, and I don't even realize that I'm like, halfway through the book by the time I'm halfway through the book because just like you said, we have a saying in when screenwriting for any scene, it's get in late, get out early. So you get to the point with as little fluff and just make them feel what they need to feel. So I think that you were quite successful in that way. Now, I want to talk about Colin, this partner of yours who has quite a major role in your life throughout the book. I want to start off. Colin speaks a lot in this book, and he calls you baby often. And personally, it's a pet name that I find gross. I just wanted to know: does Colin call you anything better?
No, he mostly calls me baby, and you know how our family dynamic and structure is set up. Like, I functionally perform all the tasks and responsibilities of a baby in the house, so it's apt.
So it's not diminutive. It's just you know
True.
Calling it like he sees it. That seems very Colin to me, having experienced him through your writing. Now, speaking of Colin, his support of you throughout this journey as you kind of dumped daily emotional trauma on him seems, quite frankly, too good to be true. Like, assuming he is a real boy, a real person, and not, a pleasure and support robot you purchased from Amazon. Do you ever do anything to support him emotionally, or are things mainly just a one-way street?
Am a better partner now than I was probably all of the years during which the book takes place. So if that's like the first 32 or so years of my life, across the board, had limited abilities to be a really good partner. But I think that part of the transformation that occurs, in act 3 of the book, but then also by completing the book and this whole process, yeah, now I feel that I am, and hopefully I'm showing up better. I really hope that these are not plant questions from Colin himself.
Oh, you'll never know that. But maybe we know where he lives. He's next door. So you can ask him. But I was very curious on my own. Getting to the end here, just a couple more questions. So on an episode of our sister production, the Social Rounds podcast, you were asked a few episodes back to share a story of failure when we were talking about failure. And at the time, one could say you took the easy way out and didn't share anything too personal or deep at that moment. Yet in the book, soul crushing failure pops up every few pages. Most notably, you talk about your experience of not matching into residency. So, why should we trust that you've learned anything from your experience, even now you can only write about your vulnerabilities, but you still can't talk about them?
Well, I feel that I still speak very freely about my vulnerabilities. There's just something about the toxic work environment on social rounds that
I've heard about it.
stymies
Yeah.
stymies any participant or guest's expression of their
It's a
vulnerabilities.
devastating place to walk into. Like, no one likes working there. That's what I've heard. Well, You know, we appreciate you giving what you can, but the vulnerability in this book that you've demonstrated really, I think, took quite a bit of bravery, a lot of soul searching on your part, and it's very apparent on the page. And we're gonna end with the question we ask all of our book club guests when they come on. It's actually not a question; it's more of a fill in the blank. This is to help you boost sales. So we'd love if you could just finish this sentence. In these challenging times of economic uncertainty, you should buy my book instead of food for your family because
Teach a man to fish, and he'll fish for a day. Give a man a love of fishing, and he'll fish for life.
wow. So we get the fish analogy, and that's guys, that's how Francis May is going to keep you fed. I think at the end of this, we're going to wrap up right now, but I think as a first interview, I think you did pretty good. This will be harder than any interview you ever have to do, but I think you kept your composure. I think you got rolling once you got into the groove. You were kind of, you roll with the weirdness because there are some weirdos that will interview you and throw you off balance. I promise, and it gets strange. So as long as you're like ready to roll and like bounce back to like your points, which you have ready, and they were really great. I think you're going to do great. Yeah. And so, one last honest plug for this book, Certain on the Edge. I did read it. It's fantastic, guys. I'm so proud of what my wonderful co-host has created. I think you guys are going to love it. Um, and it's going to be just a real treat and a real gift for a lot of people. So I want to thank you for writing it.
Thank you so much. I really do appreciate you reading it and all the support that you've given me as I was a fledgling writer a few years ago. I do have to say, plainly, I was not worried about the book tour. Like, new fear unlocked. I agree with you. It can't possibly, I don't really think it can be worse than this, but like, knock on wood. And that's not a challenge to the universe because
No, you're gonna be all right. The book is fantastic. Everybody pre-order it. It's very important to pre-order. It helps everything about how this book is sold, where you can find it, all that stuff. So please pre-order wherever you get your books. And with that, I think another successful and legendary episode of Social Rounds comes to an end. Francis May, please take us out.
if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and leave us a review. Check out our website, hippocratic-collective.com, for more shows and content like this. Thanks again for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.